So we're going to jump into a series of questions. This is a dynamic and interesting race, and you really can't talk about this race without talking about the issue of immigration. So I want to ask, and we'll start with Mr. Kiehne, what's your position on the immigration legislation that's been proposed by the Gang of Eights? Are there portions of that plan that are workable, or do we need a completely different approach?
Well, sir, I think we need to follow Congressman Salmon's approach 100%. I don't believe in giving them citizenship, granting citizenship or a pathway to citizenship. I think that already exists. They just need to go through the proper channels to secure that. We've already provided that for centuries in this country. Now let's talk about, with regard to that, we've got to secure our border. It's inevitable. We cannot continue to have this entourage coming across our border. It's not the good things that are happening. It's the bad things that are happening. And I just met with a friend of mine, a guy named Billy Wilson, qualified for the national championships 4 or 5 times in the team roping. Billy's lived in Mexico the last time I ran into him the other day in Coolidge. He said, "Gary, I need to talk to you."
Got to cut you off. We'll let you finish it. Adam, give you 60 seconds for the same question. Need me to repeat it?
No, we're good. If he wants to finish his statement, though, I don't want to. There's only 2 of us, so we need to finish the statement.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyway, Billy told me, said, Gary said, you need to understand if you're elected to Congress exactly what's happening. He said, I'm down here in Mexico. My wife, I came home from work and said, my wife's standing at the counter crying. We've had ranches down here now for 20 years. So we packed our bags and came home. He said, the drug cartels are just overwhelming down there, and they're laughing because they can come right across our border totally unimpeded. Now, when they're standing down there laughing at us, that's a joke to me. And that's what people don't understand. My family's personal ranch is 35 miles north of the Mexican border. Years ago, there was 10 or 12 a day or a week coming through our ranch. We talked the Border Patrol into actually putting in a Border Patrol station on our ranch, check station. They now have sensors all over the ranch. They have a key to the front gate, and they don't come through there anymore. That's how you solve the problem. You got to have boots on the ground, folks. Undoubtedly. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. For those of you who don't know, I'm Adam Kwasman, and I serve you in the state legislature. I actually represent Maricopa in the state house. And Sheriff Joe Arpaio has endorsed my campaign.
Sheriff Joe has endorsed my campaign because I am the only candidate who's 100% against amnesty in this race. Now, everybody's going to say they're 100% against amnesty, but where's the difference lie? I don't believe in a path to citizenship. I also don't believe in legal status amnesty for those who are here illegally. That's a big difference between my competitors and me in this race, and that's why Sheriff Joe Arpaio has endorsed my campaign. I do not believe in the Gang of Eight bill at all. We need to stand firm for the rule of law. Build the double-layer border fence. Send the National Guard to the border. Make sure we enforce E-Verify and our I-9s. Enforce the rule of law. We have to stand up for American citizens first. Thank you.
If the Affordable Care Act is not a good solution, what specifically do we need to replace it with for American health care?
It is turn or mine.
We'll start with Representative Kwasman.
Thank you. I led the fight against Obamacare in Arizona when they wanted to pass the Medicaid expansion. Unfortunately, they succeeded in the dead of night at 3:46 in the morning, which is a complete destruction of the institutions of the Arizona House, by the way. We had to fight big government Republicans, which means that we have to stand for conservative solutions against both parties. Solutions like owning your own health care through a tax-free health savings account, so that if you lose your job, you don't lose your insurance coverage. We need to allow ourselves to purchase health insurance across state lines, thereby driving down the cost of care and increasing purchasing power for the poor and those on fixed incomes the most. We need to make sure that we have tort reform at the state level to stop out-of-control lawsuits, get those lawyers out of town and bring in the doctors. I believe in FDA reform because we shouldn't be going down to Mexico and up to Canada to buy our prescription drugs. These are free market solutions driving down the cost of care, putting more money in your pocket, and making patient-centered healthcare possible for the United States.
Let's talk about Obamacare. I can tell you I'm the only candidate who actually had his insurance canceled because of the Affordable Care Act. I live it on a daily basis. I've got employees. I'm the only candidate that has employees in the district. I'm the only one faced with trying to figure out how you fix it. Bottom line is you cannot take the program as it exists and make it work. You got to totally do away with it. Then you got to do a lot of the things my competitor just told you. Now, the economy, the medical profession represents 1/6 of the economy in this country. This president told you he was going to reform America. He's doing a pretty darn good job of it. Thank you.
All right, we're going to start this third question. Mr. Kiehne, how would you bring jobs to Congressional District 1? It's obviously a very large district from terms of just square footage. So how would you bring jobs here, and then what kind of industries would you be looking to attract?
Well, that's exactly what I do, is bring jobs to the community. You know, if you'll look up in the northern part of the district, I've spent the last 17 years putting together a CO2 field that Kinder Morgan now owns. We're going to spend $300 million in a pipeline construction project and $700 million drilling wells in Apache County, Arizona. They're already in the works. That's how you bring jobs to our country. Simply dropping the taxes to individual businesses might lure me into hiring 1 or 2 more employees at one of my hotels. But the biggest problem you have in rural America and throughout America today is finance. You have got to put the local, county, and state banks right across the street. We've put them out of business through regulation. You've got to stop the federal government's regulation. We have it in the cattle business. We have it in the oil and gas business. And I'm intricately involved in both of those industries. The tourism industry is tearing us up.
One of the reasons that I was named champion of the taxpayer by Americans for Prosperity in the legislature is because of our constant fight for a pro-growth jobs agenda. You have to know what's happening in town. We're not going to create true economic growth in Maricopa if we don't build an overpass over the train. We're not going to be able to build and bring in businesses we need a restaurant here. What say you guys? I think we need more restaurants. We do that by changing the way we do banking in the United States. I want to get that Federal Reserve out of our way. It's a star chamber. It needs to go away. I want to abolish the IRS. Let's improve our pro-growth policies, flat taxes, lower regulation. Let's get the EPA out of our lives once and for all. How about you? I think we need to make sure that we stand firm against big government, because when government is limited, we all can go as far as our God-given talents can take us.
All right, we're going to stick with Representative Kwasman for the next question. I feel like I might know the answer coming from you, but I'll let you answer it anyway. What should the federal government's role in education be?
Federal government doesn't educate one child. And by the way, how's Common Core working out for anybody? Well, guess what? I voted against Common Core in the legislature. And we stand up for liberty. Education should be as close to the parents and the community as humanly possible. I believe in public schools. I believe in private schools. I believe in charter schools. I believe in religious schools like I went to. I believe in home schools. But Common Core destroys all of it. We need to defund Common Core, and we need to get that Department of Education back to the states where it belongs. Get the federal bureaucratic tentacles out of our lives. Get it as close to our communities as humanly possible. Improve school choice. Allow parents to actually have a say in their education. Teach the Constitution. Teach civics. Be able to send responsible adults to the workforce. That's how you solve this country's problems, because that future is the only thing we have to save this nation in the long run.
I didn't get the chance to vote on Common Core, but I can assure you I would have damn sure voted against it. The most amazing thing is you got the federal government trying to tell us how to teach our individual kids. Unbelievable. The waste. Unbelievable. As traveling through this campaign, I've talked to administrators, school teachers, time after time. Because when I started, I was in business. I didn't know a thing about Common Core in this candidacy. When I started learning something about it. I'm going to tell you what, the more I learn about it, the more ridiculous it is. We've got to put education at home, to the private sector, right here in our own towns, our own school systems. Our own administrators need to select the curriculum. I'm probably the last generation that knew how to run a slide rule. Now they all go to class with their own little handheld computers. I mean, what happened with throwing the beanbag and saying, what's 4 times 9?
All right, Mr. Kiehne, we're going to start with you on this one. What's your position on term limits for congressional leaders? Beneficial, harmful?
Well, you hear the pros and cons, but the ones that are that don't want term limits are the ones that are incumbent. They won't vote to put it in because they got their own agendas. Term limits, I think, are mandatory. I would support it 100%. Look at our House of Representatives. Arizona State Legislature has term limits. I think it's indicative of what the federal government needs to do. Continued representation breeds incompetence. It breeds corruption. Our forefathers' intent were for you to lay the plow down, go serve, and come back and pick the plow up. And I'm probably the only candidate here that even has walked behind the plow or pulled one. So I can assure you that's what we need to do. We need to lay the plow down, go serve, and come back and pick it up. Thank you.
I'm the only candidate in this congressional district who has signed a pledge to support term limit constitutional amendment. 3 terms. That's it. Go home. I'm the only candidate who's done so. So a lot of people talk about what they're going to do, and then others sign pledges on paper so that you, the voter, can know exactly what I'm going to do and hold me accountable. 3 terms, no more. Save it to the next person. Maybe that's Steve Smith, maybe a little later on, because he's a champion of liberty, serves with me in the State House. But that's what we need. But I'm going to tell you guys, term limits, although I believe in them 100%, if we don't get back to constitutional liberty, we're finished. Whether you're there for 3 terms or 30, you better be fighting for liberty and free markets and limited government and faith and our Second Amendment and those principles. So yes, I believe in term limits. I've signed the pledge. But I'll tell you what, our Constitution matters more than anything else.
Go back to Representative Kwasman for this next question. It's been in the news quite a bit over the past few months, but what steps would you take to address the problems that are plaguing our VA healthcare system?
Ann Kirkpatrick knew about this VA scandal in February. She sent an email to she passed along to her staff, who sent an email to committee staff. We didn't hear a thing from it until April, when the very whistleblower finally had to go public with the Arizona Republic. People were dying. Veterans were dying. Here's how you solve that problem, because we believe in conservative solutions, right? So conservative solutions for education is choice. Conservative solutions for veterans affairs is the same. It's choice. You should be able to go to any hospital you want, any medical facility, send it, put your TRICARE card in, say, I want this taken care of. God forbid anybody here has leukemia, by the way. Where do you want to go for leukemia? It's not the Mayo Clinic. It's sure as heck not the VA. You want to go to the U of A Cancer Center. So it's having that choice. It relieves that backlog immediately. It relieves the backlog at the VA. You could have your VA also, but you should be able to go to any doctor, any medical facility, any hospital, have that choice, provide the best care. We owe our veterans everything, and they deserve it.
I second that. You know, let's talk about the term limits again just for a second, because all your career politicians always say they're only going to serve for three terms. You know why? They become vested. And then they get the retirement the rest of their life. If you want to save our country 200 to 250,000 for the next 30 years on Ann Kirkpatrick, just make sure she doesn't get elected again. It's that simple. You know, and I totally agree with Adam with regard to the VA hospital. You know, we owe you all that much. By golly, you ought to be able to go in any facility and get coverage. Thank you very much.
30 seconds rebuttal for Representative Kwasman.
Well, you're on your way.
I'm sorry, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Kiehne ran for city council and lost. Had he served in city council, he would have served longer than I have. So the only reason you're not a career politician is because you're a failed politician. Now you're running for another office. I'm sorry. No, it is what it is. It is what it is. I believe in term limits. I have signed a pledge of term limits. I will never serve more than 3 terms. That is the limit. That's why I signed the pledge. For you to call me a career politician is sad.
I believe that's going to get a 30-second rebuttal as well.
Oh, you get No, really. If you look at things that my opponent here said, he said time and time again he's wanted to be a politician since he was 16 years old.
I'm an economist.
You know what? 65% of the economists that graduate from our colleges go to Washington. Do we need another one up there? The bottom line is, folks, term limits are important. And for each and every one of these guys that are politicians, and I'm not one, I guess I am now, for each and every one of them, they always tell you, I'm only going to serve 3 terms. Right? We can do the math.
Let's jump forward and let's address a question that hasn't really been talked about yet here today. We're going to start with you, Mr. Kiehne. Given the current geopolitical climate, what foreign conflict should be the top priority for the United States right now?
Well, you know, I think the Israelis sure need our help today. I think that's number one. It's unbelievable if this administration would stand aside and watch that go on. That's number one. Thank you.
I believe we should not be getting into foreign conflicts like we have been in the past. And I am 100% with Israel. I'm a member of the Jewish faith. Ani yochel ledaber ivrit. I speak Hebrew fluently. I read it. Visited Israel many times. We need to make sure that we stand firmly against Hamas and fund them entirely. But we cannot be sending our troops to Syria. We cannot be sending our troops to Ukraine and think that we are going to have a strong military. Saving this world comes through economic growth. Saving America first. I truly believe that when we do go to war, we better go to war with a mighty hand. We have to change the rules of engagement where we can't engage at night nowadays. That's insane. We have to make sure that we take care of terrorism wherever it stands. But I'll tell you what, if we continue this path of weakness nationally, then we are going to continue to project weakness internationally. We save this world by saving America's economy and by trading, by standing up and defunding Hamas and defunding terrorism wherever it lies.
We're going to work in one last question, and then we'll go to our closing statements, starting with Representative Kwasman. With issues on federal funding for freeway maintenance already ongoing, where do you see the future of the I-11 project, and what role could you play in pushing that forward?
Thank you. I believe we need an I-11, but I also believe that we are $130 trillion in debt. So where's the money going to come from? We need to grow our way out of this economy. I believe, of course, would we want to have a highway all the way from Vegas all the way down into Mexico? Yes, it's great for commerce, great for trade. Billions of dollars that we don't have. I am not willing to spend your child and your grandchild's future to build a road right now. We have got to start cutting funding. We have to start making sure that our projects, like the overpass over the railroad, has been built first before we start even thinking about a massive, massive multi-billion-dollar project. We need to be fiscally conservative and fiscally responsible. There's a lot of things that I would like to do. We don't have the money. We better start cutting spending, reducing the role of government in society, getting our debt and deficit under control, and then, when our economy is back on track, that's when we'll start talking about future spending.
Very simple. Spend that money securing our border. Why waste it on a highway system when we can't even control our border? Totally ridiculous. Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to go to our closing statements. We're going to start with Representative Kwasman. You've got 90 seconds to make your pitch.
My name is Adam. My name is Adam Kwasman. Can you hear me in the back? I served you in the state legislature, and I was named by Americans for Prosperity as the most free market member of the Arizona legislature in 2013. Champion of the taxpayer. 100% pro-life, 100% pro-family, 100% pro-Second Amendment. And if we don't send fighters to Washington, I believe we need more Ted Cruz's. I believe we need more Rand Pauls. I believe we need more Mike Lees who are going to stand up not only to the Democrats, sometimes more often than not, unfortunately, we better stand up to the big government Republicans. It is time to send proven fighters to Washington, D.C. I am proud to have been endorsed by your former mayor, Supervisor Tony Smith. I'm proud to have been endorsed by your state representative, Steve Smith, other people named Smith. I'm proud to have been endorsed by Sheriff Joe Arpaio because I am the only candidate in this race who's 100% against amnesty, including path to citizenship. I am against it 100%. I have served you in the legislature because I believe that limited government, fighting against big government wherever it stands, I believe in choice for education. I believe in protecting our veterans. And I'll tell you right now, if we don't send a fighter against Ann Kirkpatrick, we're finished. We're going to lose the race. I believe in making sure that we have conservative Republican victory in this area and in the entire district, because when free markets prevail, we are going to go as far as our God-given talents can take us. I promise you that. I'm Adam Kwasman. If you want to find out more, go to adamkwasman.com. Thank you.
Thank you all for letting us come here today and visit with you. You know, I want to tell you, I've asked each and every forum I've come before to look at the underlying motivations of each candidate running for this office. Judge for yourself what they're here and trying to do. I've never been in politics, not a career politician. I've been in the business sector, and I think my business background totally represents our district. I grew up in the farming and ranching business, the cattle business, the general store mercantile business. I've been 30 years in the oil and gas business, and we have very major energy things that we need to overcome. I've spent my life producing beef, putting meat on the table. That's our district, folks. The timber industry. My dad liked selling one chainsaw in 1964 to be the leading chainsaw salesman in the United States for McCullough Chainsaw. And I remember that because my mother was mad because they couldn't get their trip to Hawaii. Distinctly remember it. So look at the candidates. Look at us. Determine for yourself who's the most well-rounded individual who will actually represent you in the business world. I understand how to create jobs. I'm doing it. I understand how to drill and produce oil and gas wells and our energy problems because I'm doing it. Thank you so much. My name is Gary Kiehne. I look very forward to representing you. Adios.